Hey friends, these two documents came to mind as I am finishing up the introduction to Eliminate the Opiate Volume 2. The introduction will be out this weekend, and I thank you for your patience on that. The huckleberries were irresistible, but the wildfire smoke is so bad this weekend, I'll definitely be home taking care of things. So this roster here, this is the 1975 cabinet of President Gerald Ford. Interesting, whose real name was not Gerald Ford. He had changed his name. It was Leslie Lynch King Jr. So Ford, President Ford, he was no relation to Henry Ford. Just to clarify, because we're about to look at a Henry Ford Sr. document as well. So no relation, and actually documents that are about 50 years apart almost. This one, 1975, the deciding year. I want to explain this to you because I don't want you to think that this is just our brothers and sisters in synagogues across America, because we're talking about the 99% versus the 1% here. And this is especially true because a small group of the population controls nearly 100% of nationwide news communications. This still rings true today, but it's this group of power and bloodlines, and this is the 1%, the social elitists. Let's see if we can get it to focus in here. Okay, Weinberger, Secretary of Welfare. President Ford nominated Matthews actually to succeed Caspar Weinberger in July 23rd, 1975. And as we learn in the introduction of Volume 2, Dr. Antleman discusses the excommunication of Kissinger in 1976. So we have Weinberger, Greenspan, Friedman, Nesson, Kissinger. Levi was the Attorney General. We had Schlesinger, Simon, Burns, Seidman, and Bernstein. Keep in mind this group of individuals who hid behind the ruse of Judaism. And let's actually replace the word Jewish with Frankist. And I think that will put it in more of a context of what we're about to hear from Henry Ford Sr. This is a propaganda from the day. This is something that he published as part of a very long ongoing campaign in the 20s. Henry Ford Sr. bought the Dearborn Journal in 1918 to continue running this campaign. And so, owning a newspaper, you get to say whatever it is you want to say. But he was disgusted in the early 1920s. This is a time when the Council of Foreign Relations was being created. Now, interesting here, this is a time when the Trilateralist Commission was being created. So, two different times, 50 years apart. But let's listen to what Ford actually has to say here, because it still rings true today, even 100 years later. Okay, so instead of saying Jewish, I'm going to say Frankist, okay? Because I want to recognize it as exactly what it is. And the manner in which Ford is writing this, it is one of those short blurbs that is meant to invoke emotion, and it goes through so many things. Surely the reader will identify it with at least one of them. And so this is a very common journalistic approach here that Ford is using. And true journalism has really gone to the pits lately. So communism is Frankist. It is rather surprising, is it not, that whichever way you turn to trace the harmful streams of influence that flow through society, you come upon a group. Actually, let's just say a group. In sports corruption, a group. In exploitative finance, a group. In theatrical degeneracy, a group. In liquor propaganda, a group. In control of national war policies, a group. Absolutely dominating the wireless communications of the world, a group. The menace of the movies, a group. In control of the press through business and financial pressure, a group. War profiteers, 80% of them, Frankists. The miasma of so-called popular music, which combines weak-mindedness with every suggestion of lewdness, a group. And organizers of active opposition to Christian laws and customs, again, a group. It is time to show that the cry of bigot is raised mostly by bigots. There is a religious prejudice in the country. There is indeed a religious persecution. There is a forcible shoving aside of the religious liberties of a majority of the people. And this prejudice and persecution and use of force is Frankist and nothing but. So I have replaced those words just to set a clear representation that what Ford is coming from here 100 years ago, everything he says still rings true. We can identify with these even today, a century later, especially liquor propaganda. Alcoholism is a huge problem in our country. The control of the media still rings true today. All of the newspapers and television news outlets, they all parrot the same narrative. They're all given their scripts to read. So there's a scene in the movie Good Morning Vietnam where Robin Williams is given the news, but half of it has been edited and blocked out to prevent the average person from hearing the true news. And what they're left with ultimately is just a bunch of nonsense. It's feel-good stories and story truths. So something else that Henry Ford Sr. talks about here, the so-called popular music, which combines weak-mindedness with every suggestion of lewdness. Music has definitely gone downhill. And compared to where it was even a couple of decades ago, it's gone downhill horribly. But listen to what they're telling our kids these days. The most popular ones out there are the ones that are saying, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, I need medication, I can't do this, I don't fit in, everything is a struggle, I'm so forlorn, I'm weak. A lot of these popular songs are just catering to this mindset. He also discussed wireless communications. Well, wireless communication in his sense is not what we think of now as far as wireless communication. So we didn't have cell phones readily attached as extensions of our hands back then. We were still tethered to the wall. But wireless communication today has expanded into a very large overseeing control effort. And our cities did not have any say-so where those 5G towers went. And even though there are several documented experiments that have proven and case studies that have documented the dangers, including a dorm room in California where 3 different individuals over the progression of years of inhabitants of that dorm room with the 5G tower right outside their window, all of them developed brain tumors. And for no other external variable other than exposure. So this is something that we have to look at, but we just expect our governments and we expect these big corporations to do what's in our best interest, and they don't. We know they don't. They do everything in the name of the money game. So what happens with communism here? Well, we know that Plato ideal of the ruling class, the military, and the working class. The ruling class is the 1%. The military is the grand overlord that controls the 99%. So we are that working class. We are the 99%. And if you think of something that is a globalized agenda, NATO and the United Nations should come to mind. So if the policing army of the world takes over, we're done for. In terms of communism, when Schwab came out and said, you will own nothing and you will be happy, he didn't say, I will own nothing and I will be happy. He said, you, that's us, that's the 99%. So where is this coming from? What is the ultimate agenda behind it? Well, it's this Marxist ideology of socialism that is not meant to support the 99%, you and me. This is something that, for so many generations, it's been set into motion. And now we're finally seeing things come into fruition after this very long cycle and this planning. So we're in what's known now as something called an adjustment period. We're adjusting to the changes of our society. But it's about resistance and it's about what we're not willing to put up with. I am not willing to put up with a vaccine passport. And I don't think many people of the world are willing to do the same thing, because you see even today, if you saw the streets of Paris, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That is happening today. And worldwide, people are reacting to this control and this takeover, as they should be. So if you don't speak out now, then you're basically just flatlining. You're willing to adjust to this social narrative of adjustment period, but it really is more of a tightening of the strings of control meant to reel us into this ultimate agenda. And they knew that it would take hundreds of years, and they knew that it would take a lot of implementing and programming, but this is where we're at. So go back and look at the other video that I did, the executive orders video, and every single part of society would be taken over at that point. So they would control transit, food, movement throughout our borders, communications, and these are all things that they're working on today. Everything is under government control. They control our food supply, and more shortages are imminent. They control our gas. Prices are over $4 a gallon here today. And this is very conducive to that overall agenda. So I wanted to show you these two documents just so you would get a very clear understanding that from this, what Henry Ford Sr. is warning us about 100 years ago, literally from 1921, it's the same thing. It's exactly what we see today. And we have to put an end to this vicious and destructive cycle.